here in Bonaire, part of the Dutch Caribbean. Bonaire is a true oceanic island located in the southern Caribbean, about 50 miles north of Venezuela. What I mean by a true oceanic island is that it comes up from the bottom of the ocean, very steep to very shallow in a very limited space. So our reef actually is like a rubber band around the island where the lionfish can live. Lionfish arrived in Bonaire in October of 2009. Since that time, the marine park has been trying to eradicate the lionfish from the island. Lionfish is a concern for a couple reasons. One of the main reasons is that they eat other fish, and being most predatory fish in the Caribbean region are currently overfished, and so having something that's eating the small predators, juvenile stages, is a bad thing for reefs in Bonaire. Bonaire is a small island located just to the west of the island of Bonaire. There's kind of a small replicate of the island of Bonaire. And we're using that as an experiment to try to see how hunting lionfish can possibly reduce the population. We took several trips out on a boat to dive and hunt lionfish. And by doing that, we believe that we've decrease the population of lionfish around the island. What we hope to do in the future is to look back at the numbers that we collect now to see whether there are less lionfish out there where we hunted in the past than there will be in other places where they aren't hunted in such a controlled manner. The organization that manages the marine park banned spear guns a long time ago, which makes it very difficult to hunt lionfish. So in order to be able to keep the populations down, they needed a new tool. The ELF was chosen for a number of reasons. One is that it's small and hopefully used properly won't damage the reef. Stenapa also has approved some shops to train local volunteers to hunt lionfish. So if you want to hunt lionfish, you need to go to the training and learn about a little bit about the ecology, how to handle the ELF, and how to make sure that the reef isn't damaged by hunting.
To catch lionfish here in Bonaire, we use a tool called the ELF. The ELF is the only tool permitted to remove fish on the reefs in Bonaire. It's approved by Stenapa, and the tool is given to lionfish hunters that volunteer here on a contractual basis. The way that the tool functions is there's a spring inside the handle. If you pull the spring back, you can see how much throw you have, approximately 6 inches. You point the spear at the fish, draw back the spring. When you're close enough to the fish, you release, and it impales the fish on the end. The ELF comes with a 3-pronged tip. They're splayed out slightly. On impact, the tip spreads slightly to hold the fish on the end. These tips are replaceable. It's threaded. Simply unscrew it. And I prefer a much longer tip, a paralyzer tip that would typically go on a Hawaiian sling. My tool is equipped with a flashlight that I use for hunting late afternoons and in the evenings. During the daytime as well, lionfish tend to hold up inside caves or small little pockets in the reef. You can illuminate that to make sure that we don't hit any reef structure. When we use the tool, it's very important that our buoyancy is perfect so we don't disturb the reef. When we take a shot at the fish, we don't want to damage any of the substrate, any of the reef. We make sure we have a clean shot at the fish. We grab the handle, approach the fish, make sure your angle is right, and let it go, impaling the fish. use this homemade collection device. Depending on the size of the fish, it can hold 20 fish or so. It protects me from the venomous spines on the lionfish. The way that we use it is we impale the fish on the end of the spear. We slowly place the fish inside, pull the spear back out. The fish remains inside. I prefer to clip this onto my BC. I usually clip it onto a waist D-ring and then also here. The unit's situated like this. I can see what I'm doing while I put the fish in.
The idea to start with guided boat trips around Klein Bonaire to go for lionfish, to hunt for lionfish, was a little bit twofold. The main plan was to learn about diver behavior while hunting. And to learn about that, the best way is to be present. So we wanted to do it in a controlled way, and that's why we decided to do boat dives. And to be able to control it completely without any interference, we did it around Klein Bonaire, because one boat on the mooring means mooring occupied, next boat finds a different mooring. And the other reason was, the other thing we did was Saturday afternoon. Saturday is the big changeover day on the island of Bonaire, hardly any tourists. So the people working in diving, the volunteers hunting, and people out there trying to control the lionfish population should have a little time available, because it's mostly a non-diving day. And so there was for Latina divers as well. We could use our boat that day because we didn't need it for transporting tourists. Why we tried to start to understand diver behavior a little bit is that started in last November, when there was a lionfish hunting trip organized by basically the marine park. It was in the Washington Slough Bay Park, and there I joined in. I volunteered with the boat too. I provided the boat for being able to do drift dives and go to the areas where there's no access from shore. And there I was in the water too every now and then shockingly, surprisingly, I saw that not a lot of hunters were actually, it sounds a little blunt, but helping out. They did kill fish here and there, but they also killed things unintentionally, like corals. So I basically wanted to get a grip on diver behavior. So that's why we started to organize trips where there was cameras in the water, experienced people in the water, marine park personnel in the water, and in the briefings before we leave the marina, we told the people what the plan was, that they were going to be monitored, they were going to be filmed, and that their behavior is going to be used for educational purposes. We're still halfway in that process, we're busy with it, it's not done. But we get there. The idea is to do a little odd drift dive. We start somewhere in the middle between two dive sites and we dive both directions. We will go into detail about that once we're actually there at the site. Then who jumps in where and what direction to swim, I will remind you. Yeah? So you know, when you surface, the boat will not be in the direct neighborhood. So I can only be at one spot at a time. So relax. I know you're there. I will come and pick you up.
Actually, his trigger's a little bit tough too.
We are here to help the reef, but don't touch the reef, don't damage the corals. Consider a shot. Yeah? If you think you're gonna miss it, leave it, don't take it. If you think you're gonna hurt corals, damage corals, do not take the shot, please. Okay? Thank you for that.
Thank you.
it in the earth. I smell it in the air. The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air.
When divers come out from a dive, I take details from them. I ask what their maximum depth was, their total dive time, and also in terms of the fish they caught, at what depth they caught them, so we can have an idea of where the fish are found. And then we also record how many fish they saw that either got away or they didn't even try. Once they are here, we start measuring the fish. So first we do the standard length of the lionfish, which is from the beginning of the nose to the beginning of the tail. And then the total length is from the beginning of the nose to the end of the tail. We also do the wet weight. And then after that, we open the lionfish up and we look at their sex. The sex of the lionfish can be distinguished according to the color. So male lionfish have a white or creamish color duct along their swim bladder, whereas the female have a slightly pink color. And after that, we open up the stomachs. Once we cut the stomach off, we open it up and count how many fish there are, or shrimps or crabs, and then we try to identify it down to species level.
So, once we had set up the plan to start offering those trips to do it, then we kind of found that we were missing a certain part. And me as a dive operator was interested in diver behavior and try to improve that maybe where possible. But then we thought, you know, we have such a nice possibility now to control the sites where we go and to monitor the whole island of Klein Bonaire. So then we kind of contacted CIEE to see if they were interested in basically the research part of our hunting trips or our diving educational hunting trips. And they jumped on it right away. And Fadila came along on every boat dive. She actually joined in on the hunting dives herself. And then afterwards she was busy with measuring, weighing, cutting them open, getting the stomachs out, and paperwork flying around. It was kind of interesting. And then there was only one part that was missing. Then we had the dead fish. And I thought, yeah, now what? So it took a while, but we tried to find a restaurant who was interested in actually serving the fish, to the consumer, to the people, to the tourists. And with that, we try to not just waste the hunt, because it's a very good eatable fish, but basically we tried also to reduce the pressure on the rest of the fish. So there's less snapper surf, less barracuda surf, less wahoo surf. But that's the lionfish maybe becomes a nice feature on the restaurant menu.
This study has been a very unique study in that I think it's one of the first times where an entire island has been surveyed, and from this we can determine what the density of lionfish actually are. It's also important to see what's the difference between Bon Air and Klein Bon Air, because although they're quite close together, the fish that they're feeding on and the behavior of the lionfish seem to be slightly different. And with more research we can figure out why this is, because the lionfish here are eating different things and they're feeding on different things at different times. And I don't know why that might be, so with further research we can probably figure that out.
One of the most important things that comes from this collaboration again is that we have a student doing a PhD project from the UK who was able to use this information. CIEE is able to use the data to fill in some blanks in their studies. We've made important connections between conservation groups, the restaurateurs on the island, and also the dive operators. And these collaborations show that how a few people in the community can really make a difference and get out there and collect something in a way that benefits a number of different aspects of the concerns about this invasive species and how it's going to be controlled on the island. This is an example of how science can be used in the real world to solve real problems and hopefully make a difference to the conservation of coral reef communities in Bon Air.